WisconsinEye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
WisconsinEye coverage of the 2014 elections continues with an interview with Mr. Pat Bomhack of Spring Green. He's a Democratic candidate in the 17th Senate District. Pat, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thank you so much for having me.
And just as programming note, WisconsinEye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. First question, as you know, Pat, for candidates, short bio. I find yours intriguing. Volleyball star, Stanford, volleyball team, lawyer, work for Governor Doyle, Senator Feingold, and Congressman Kine. Did I miss anything? There, I gave your whole bio. No, well, the question is, with a bio like that, why do you want to run for the state Senate?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here on WisconsinEye. I got into this race because I love my community of Spring Green and our small town way of life. I love my state and our progressive history. And because there are big challenges facing us here in Wisconsin, and I want to fight hard to make sure that everyone in Wisconsin has the best future possible.
With a statement like that, I've got to follow it up. Biggest challenge facing Wisconsin, sir?
Well, let me just explain a little bit more here.
Go ahead.
Now, how I got into this race. Several years ago, I had the great privilege of working for U.S. Senator Russ Feingold, as you mentioned. And one of the joys of working there was every once in a while, I got to take Wisconsin constituents on a tour of the U.S. Capitol. And we would go to what's called National Statuary Hall, which is where the House of Representatives was during the early 1800s. And it's a beautiful room. Okay. It's historic, and it's a very intimate setting. Now, in that hall, there is a great statue of one of Wisconsin's favorite sons, Senator Fighting Bob LaFollette.
Okay.
And I would make sure that we would always go to that statue and spend just a minute or two discussing Bob LaFollette and the many great reforms that he passed for this state. And it was through a lot of those conversations that I gained a strong sense that at some point I wanted to return to my beloved home state and get involved in shaping public policy here. Now, we do face many big challenges here in Wisconsin, and one of them is the division that we have in this state. I believe that the Wisconsin way of doing things is not to divide and conquer.
You're talking about like the 46-46 tie for governor, things like that?
Well, the Wisconsin way of doing things, our whole approach here, the divisiveness we have in the state, the Wisconsin way of doing things is to invite everyone to the table so that we can solve the problems that affect our great Badger state. And that's why I'm running.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of those issues.
Yeah, that's great.
First issue, as you know, that I ask candidates about, part of the state budget debate over K-12 issues will be over choice and vouchers. Now, on your website, you say one of your goals is to support public education. Mm-hmm. What should be the future of choice and vouchers in the next budget, Pat?
Let's take a look. Let's take a step back and take a look at who's behind the voucher movement in Wisconsin. Now, my local representative is a Republican named Howard Markline. And in 2011, on June 27th, or shortly thereafter, Howard went to his campaign mailbox and took out an envelope. And in that envelope, there was a check for $250. And it was made out from a woman named Alice Walton. Now, Alice Walton is the daughter of Sam Walton, the founder of the Walmart corporations. Right. And she is a member of the wealthiest family in America. Yep. And she herself is the third wealthiest woman in the world. Now, that same day, Howard also got a check from Alice's brother, Jim Walton, who is the 10th wealthiest person in the world. Howard took those two checks and put them in his campaign bank account. Now, this raises the question, what in the world is the wealthiest family in America doing mailing campaign checks to a local representative in a small town in southwest Wisconsin? And the answer is that these are the people who are behind the voucher movement in Wisconsin.
Okay, but let's take the next step.
Yes.
In the next budget, if you're a state senator voting on that budget, would you cancel choice statewide, even though it now has a cap on number of students at 1,000? Would you continue it just in the two large cities, Milwaukee and Racine? What would you do, future of choice in the next budget?
What I believe in is the neighborhood, local, traditional public schools that we have in this state. That is the most democratic and time-tested way of ensuring a strong educational system here in Wisconsin. So, plainly spoken, I will say no to more vouchers, and yes to the best public education system possible for our children.
Okay, no to more vouchers. Would you keep it in the two urban cities in eastern Wisconsin?
Well, I would not want to step on the toes of the Milwaukee and Racine legislators, but I would offer this to my friends in Milwaukee and Racine. For the last 20 years, report after report have shown that the voucher school system does measurably no better than our public school system, and yet it eats away and undermines the Milwaukee public school system and other public schools throughout the state, and it operates and uses taxpayer dollars with little to no oversight. So that would be what I would offer to my friends from that part of the state.
Having interviewed 70 legislative candidates so far, I know that Common Core is going to be a big issue. Do you support Common Core standards?
Here's what I believe. My number one priority when it comes to education is making sure that every child in Wisconsin gets the best education possible, while also being responsible stewards of the taxpayer dollar. And now Tony Evers, our state superintendent of public instruction, he has the respect and esteem of teachers, of parents, of both Republicans and Democrats. And I share his approach to this issue. I think it would be disruptive after we have already spent years and millions of dollars getting the Common Core standards in place to repeal them. So I support implementation, but the important part for people like me running for office is what's going to happen next. And the thing about Common Core is we don't know what these new standards are going to do in terms of the results yet. We have a responsibility as legislators in the next 1 to 2 years to rigorously review the results. So what we need to do is sit down at the table with teachers, with our local superintendents, and with parents, and ask the following questions. Are these standards doing right by our children? Okay. Are they making our children better prepared for college than otherwise, better ready to enter a competitive workforce than otherwise? And also, are the assessments being used to assess teachers and schools, are those fair and are they reasonable? So my term would begin in January 2015.
Yes.
And if I am elected, my first order of duty in January will be to sit down at the table and have those kinds of conversations with families all over southwest Wisconsin.
Let's talk about health care. The decision by Governor Walker and the leaders of the Senate and the Assembly to tell the federal government, no thank you to your offer of paying for an expansion of MA. Wise or unwise, sir?
When it comes to health care security for a family, we should, to the extent possible, try and remove the politics and the ideology from the conversation. Okay. And my perspective is that his decision was ideologically and politically driven. It was an unwise decision simply because it was a bad deal for the people of Wisconsin. We actually put 77,000 people off of their current health care. And according to a nonpartisan study, it's going to cost the taxpayers of Wisconsin over $440 million before 2020. So politics aside, it was just a bad deal for Wisconsin.
Okay. As you know, I ask candidates their reaction to Judge Crabb's reaction, but I think you cover that on your website when you say fight for marriage equality. So that's pretty much your position on same-sex marriage, isn't it?
Judge Crabb got it right.
Okay.
And, well, let me just comment on why.
Okay.
First of all, as a lawyer, I know that she is one of the most well-regarded jurists in the country. And her decision is based in two basic principles in our democracy. The first is freedom. The freedom to marry who you love without interference from the state or federal government. And secondly, it's based on the principle of equality. The right to have equal treatment under the law for all of our citizens, regardless of your age, regardless of your race, and regardless of your sexual orientation. So I am thrilled that now we have friends, neighbors, and family all throughout southwest Wisconsin, this great state, who we're moving towards a place where those people are no longer to be treated as second-class citizens. The
17th Senate District is pretty rural, so it relies on good roads to get its products to market. There's a projected $650 million deficit in the next 2-year state transportation department budget. Do we delay some major highway projects? Do we raise taxes? How would you make up that deficit?
Well, let me answer that question first by saying that we need to get our bite of the apple in southwest Wisconsin. The most recent budget actually increased spending on transportation by almost $900 million, but that principally went to 2 projects, which consumed almost $500 million of that in Milwaukee County. And I understand that the governor came out in Milwaukee, and that there are many powerful Milwaukee legislators, and that many of them, when it comes to transportation spending, are just in a Milwaukee state of mind. But I got to tell you, out in southwest Wisconsin, I drive those roads a lot, and our roads are deteriorating, and it's a public safety issue, and it's an economic issue. So first and foremost, I need to be an advocate to ensure we're getting our bite of the apple. Okay. But second of all, when it comes to fixing this hole, yes, we're going to have to fix that hole, and I've read the governor's committee's report, and they provide about 5 or 6 recommendations. What I would want to look at is, how does this affect the people of southwest Wisconsin? Are they being disproportionately treated in some of these measures to fill the hole? For example, one of the recommended measures says that for ever how many miles you drive during the year, you'll get a certain tax based upon each mile.
There'll be a surtax.
Well, if you live in Reedsburg and you drive into Madison for work, or if you live in Dodgeville and you drive to Dubuque for work, you're going to be disproportionately taxed on that issue relative to someone who lives in an urban area. And so that wouldn't be a good measure for the people of southwest Wisconsin, and I'm going to be an advocate for them. Okay.
Moving on, because time is getting away. 2 Democratic candidates for Attorney General say first offense OWI should be a crime. Your position?
Yes.
Should be a crime.
Yes, it should be, it should be a misdemeanor.
Oh, it should be a misdemeanor.
It should be a misdemeanor. Okay. Wisconsin is the only state in the country where your first offense of drunk driving is not at least a misdemeanor, and we have the highest prevalence of drunk driving in the entire country. Okay. This is an issue of saving lives.
Okay. The minimum wage debate both in Madison and Washington, would you vote to raise it? If so, how high?
Yes, I would vote to raise it to 1010 and index it from there going forward to keep up with inflation.
I want to ask about one more issue on your website. You think there has to be...
Thank you for visiting my website.
I have to get ready for these. You believe we need new controls on frac sand mining.
Absolutely.
Should those controls be imposed state level or local government
level?
Well,
new controls might be a little bit of a misnomer. Really, we have strong local controls.
Okay.
And when it comes to the protection of our natural resources, that's where the decision-making should lie. We have a great heritage in southwest Wisconsin and tradition of solving our community decisions at the local level, and that's where the frac sand mining.
So you don't want the strong local controls weakened?
Absolutely not. Okay. Absolutely not. Let the local government work.
Okay, just 2 more questions quickly. Any other major issue I haven't asked you about, sir?
I would just want to highlight one broad theme, which is that we need some healing in this state. The level of political divisiveness and ideology has been uncharacteristic and unnecessarily high. You know, Wisconsin is a neighbor-to-neighbor kind of a state. It's the kind of state where you come home from work and you go to the end of the driveway, you say hi to your neighbor, and you enjoy a cool beverage together, and for a couple minutes you just talk about your families, about your work, about whatever's in the news. And unfortunately, the level of politics, of divisiveness we've had, the divide and conquer approach, has divided and conquered a lot of those friendships. There are golfing foursomes that don't play together anymore. There are people who don't sit in the pew next to each other at church anymore. There are people who don't join together for lunch on Tuesdays at the local cafe anymore. And we need to have a level of healing in this state before we can move forward together as one.
And then finally, just a few seconds left, do you want to highlight any differences between you and your opponent in the August 12th primary?
As Democrats, we should follow the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not speak ill of any fellow Democrat. We need to unite. The real divide is between what we're fighting for and where the governor has taken us.
Thank you very much. Pat Bomhack of Spring Green is a Democratic candidate in the 17th Senate District. The primary is August 12th. Pat, thanks for visiting WisconsinEye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.